College tennis fans, welcome to this episode of College Tennis Talk. We are joined by Lee Nickel, head men's tennis coach, University of Buffalo. Lee, I want to thank you for spending the time with us today.
Thanks for having me on, Davidson. I really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. Lee, your name came up several times with some of our past guests, Matt Hill, Ross Wilson, Billy Pate, and really the success you've had at Buffalo and a so-called mid-major level, and Ross and several coaches just talking up a presentation you made at a college coaches convention back in, I believe it was 2015, and it was on the lines of how to make your dream job where you are. And that speech, presentation had a great impact on a lot of coaches there, and continue to hear about that today. I wonder if you can, discuss that a little bit further with us, or share some of that talk with our audience today.
Sure. Yeah. This is I guess I'm going into my 12th season now at the University of Buffalo. And, we were talking beforehand. I think Buffalo was not really a destination when I was growing up, and a place that I thought that I would live and create a family and kind of, be entrenched in the community. But, it's amazing how it's turned out that way. 2015, I gave this speech at the convention. More so, I think they asked me to give a speech, and I was trying to think along the lines of how I can help young coaches, through some of the mistakes I've made. I was at the University of Alabama for 4 years. We did some really cool things there. We went from 65 to 10 in the country, but I wasn't getting the jobs that the looks that I wanted to get at some of the programs that I wanted to go to. And, and I got antsy, I guess is the best way to put it. And really felt like I wasn't getting, what I deserved, which was a real short-sighted view. But I was fortunate enough to go to Fresno State right after that and stay in the college tennis realm. And when Buffalo opened up and Jay and I talked about it, it was kind of a joke at first. I had an assistant coach at Furman that actually played at Buffalo, and I remember giving him a bunch of crap about it and everything else. But getting up here, checking it out, seeing the potential, seeing the conference, and kind of knowing that the teams were good but were beatable. You could make NCAAs. Kind of gave me the opportunity as a young coach to come in and to see what I can do. But with the full, in my mind, my thought was, okay, I'm coming in 3 years, turn the program, and then again move forward. But we had success, and within those 3 years, I missed out on a few jobs, and I started realizing, okay, this is maybe I shouldn't be looking so much into the future. I need to really kind of focus in on what we have here, because this isn't a bad situation. I was fortunate enough to have good people.
Lee, currently, Buffalo's your life, and you've shared that you're committed to being there in the program, and it has kind of become a dream job, and you can't see yourself somewhere else because it's part of your life right now. Prior to that, you said you were getting a little bit antsy. What were some of your ideas of dream jobs? Did you have spots? Did you have programs you wanted to be? Was it a location? I mean, where was your mindset back there that was causing you to be, antsy and wanting to move out of Tuscaloosa?
Well, I mean, going back and looking back at, I was 24 when I took the Bama assistant job, which seems crazy to think about now. But there's a lot of immaturity, I think, at that age, especially going up. I mean, I don't feel like I hit maturity until I was 35. I mean, it's been one of those things where I've made rash decisions at times that ended up being obstacles, but obviously I wouldn't change it for the world. But I remember, seeing guys get jobs, and again, it was different back then. It wasn't as competitive of a career path, at least when we got in, as it is now. But I thought I wanted to be at a Power 5 school. I thought I wanted to compete, at least to make Sweet 16s, or being that I didn't really have a desire to play for a national title. I thought that there was probably a little bit too much of selling your soul to go to do that. but I did really like being competitive at that high level. I loved my time at Bama in terms of the competitive side of it. And so I saw myself being at a place like that, like a Bama or, Florida State, one that's consistently top 20, but really, you can get to Sweet 16. And
you brought up Florida State, and I'm just going to share this. We were on our recruiting trips together years back at Florida State.
Oh yeah, we can go through the history. I mean, you've got a really personal view of Lee Nickel from 17 to now. I can go back. I look at that recruiting trip, and I was so insecure thinking about it that now, because I was such a late bloomer in tennis. And you were on your visit. You had been at Auburn, and I remember just being like in awe of all the guys there, just thinking how good they were and that I didn't belong. And then when we went and we played, I think Chad Mooney, you played doubles with Chad, and I was playing with Matt Lucas at the summer circuit, and Matt showed up late. I was so mad at Matt, and we were down 3-0. And I was, as a competitor, I was a jerk. I really was bad. And I remember you saying to me, you need to just calm down. And I remember, I remember thinking to myself, damn, he's right. Like, why am I getting so upset? And that tournament was big for me too, because Trevor Sprackland and I went out and got a beer that night. And Trevor was like, it was the first time we hung out. And he goes, I never really, I thought this was going to be different. He goes, everybody tells me what an a-hole you are on the court. And he's like, but you seem all right off the court. And again, another thing started going through my mind. It's like, yeah, I'm a jerk. I'm really bad when it comes to competing. But yeah, you got to see me back then when I was really insecure and kind of struggling to find my spot, which I think, coupled into what we're talking about now with career is why Buffalo fits my personality so well. I like having the chip stacked against me, and as a coach and being up here trying to recruit and trying to play these great teams. I like being the underdog, and I like that kind of fight. I obviously fight a lot better now than I did back in the day. I'm not such a jerk anymore, but it's amazing to kind of look back on little things like that, those little experiences back then, and how it kind of shapes my paradigms and why why Buffalo, why staying here is important to me.
And I want you to get back to that, but the other interesting thing that you're bringing up is how you're behaving and acting as a 17-year-old kid, and we're college coaches, and we're recruiting those kids, and it's tough, and you might be passing on a kid at 17, and as you said, you're immature, you're nowhere near development, or you're in product, and as coaches, we have to either take risk on that, or we might miss out on a great kid that just needs a little bit of time, just needs a little bit of coaching, mentoring. And then they can go on and be an incredible asset to a program. And you've clearly showed that during your time at Furman, and now what you're giving back to student athletes.
I love it. When I look at why I do this job, and I think I always view the way I coach somebody is how would I have liked to have been coached. I was fortunate to have Scarpa as a coach, and he was certainly a legend, and made some really good teams there with not a lot to work with, which always, again, I think it plays into why I love this job that I have now. But when I recruit guys that have a little bit of, whether it be temper issues or mental issues, or they choke or whatever, those are my favorite. Those are my favorite guys to work with, because it's almost like I'm going back and trying to help myself when I was playing back in the day, because I just didn't have the right guidance, I don't think, in terms of how to control my emotions when they get high, or when I get tight, how to go through it, and through those obstacles and trying to figure them out as a player. Now putting it into coaching and watching my guys kind of go through it and helping them get through. That's really why I do it. I feel like I want to try to go back. It's almost like I'm going back and trying to coach myself back in the day, because I feel like there's just a little tweak here or there for some of these guys that can make them take off.
How good do you think you would have gotten if you were coaching yourself?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think looking at it, exercise physiology is what I studied. Scarpa, for all his good qualities, he didn't believe in working out. He didn't believe in stretching or lifting. So it was 4 hours. It was 4 hours of court every day. And so then after, I would kind of have to design my own stuff. And so for a couple of years, I said, well, maybe this is what I should study. I wasn't really great at school anyway, and I had some options. And so getting into X-Phys, I think I tore my labrum between my junior and senior year in my shoulder, and so that was that's kind of why I went into X-Phys as well. I knew that physically I wasn't doing everything I needed to do to be the best I could be, and so looking back on that now with what I know, I certainly think I would have helped my shoulder, but I don't know if I could have gotten any more out of this body because I really, when I pushed hard. Like, that was it. And I think I just wore my body out.
Well, you sound like a student athlete that we'd all want on our programs. Guys that are using the resources that a university provides. There's only so much a coach can do. It definitely depends on the student athlete kind of taking it that next step, and the weight training and whatnot wasn't offered to you, but you took it upon yourself to go find it. It's the same. We've got 6 courts indoor, 6 courts outdoor at Drake, and guys have access to the facility all day long, and it's upon them. If they want to get the extra work in, they can come out anytime, hit serves, and make the most of what they have. I'm kind of going back into what we were discussing before and building on this with that mid-major life.
Right.
And what programs are a good fit. And, what we can offer kids is what every other place can offer them right off the bat. Tennis courts, right? And a coach that is willing to get out there and help that player. So, you had ambitions and you thought, your dream landing spot was going to be in the Power 5. And at a young kid, that's what you were dreaming of. And that path took a side road. And landed you in Buffalo. So again, I want you to kind of get back on, the reasons that you really fell in love with Buffalo and the reasons that you want to stay in Buffalo, and the benefits of being in a mid-major program.
Right. So going to Bama from Furman, I graduated, I taught for about a year and a half, and then I went to be Billy's assistant at Alabama. And the first day, I'll never forget, Billy gave me all my clothes, and it was more clothes than anybody could ever wear in a lifetime. I've never seen that much Alabama gear, numbers of shoes and everything else. And, coming from Furman, where we got 2 pairs of K-Swiss brick shoes and, and one shirt and whatever, I was shocked in terms of what those guys got. And so I did know at that point, I was like, this is too much. And then going to Fresno State and kind of seeing that balance, it was kind of the perfect spot in between Furman and Alabama in terms of the things those guys got. And then coming to Buffalo and knowing that it was probably going to be a bit of a step down from what, Fresno State had, a little bit better than Furman in terms of what the things that we got. But it was about getting in there and saying, okay, like, how can I make them believe they're getting everything that Alabama's getting, right? And so, trying to determine where the money should go and figure out, like, okay, what can we kind of skimp on and still give them the experience that they want to have that I promised them, which is, again, one of the most important things is when our guys are done, I want them to turn around and say, I had every opportunity to get where I wanted to go, whether it be tennis, academics, whatever. Everything that Lee said at the start of this is true. And so that's been a real big goal in terms of how we operate our budget and go about things that way. We drive a lot, we travel light, we stay in shoddy hotels. At Furman, we used to stay in motor lodges, where it would be 4 per room and we'd share beds, and it was a grind. We're not that bad here, but we'll skimp a little bit when we travel. We'll travel a little bit rougher. Just again, and if these guys want to play tour, if they want to go out and play futures, this is the way it's going to be for them. So it's really kind of a good experience if that's really what they want to do, to kind of see, okay, this is what lifestyle is going to be. But it's
I think about it in those terms, because we definitely are road warriors and putting countless hours, in the van. And you think of the difference in some of our college programs at the highest level in the Power Fives, and how much better they are treated than professional tennis players. So they're having this experience, and they go out on tour like, oh wait, I don't have a private plane anymore. I don't have a physio that's traveling with me to every event, and all of a sudden they're taking long bus trips and train rides all over the place, and that kind of shocks them as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the difference, I mean, it's night and day. If you look at some of these Power 5 schools and what they do for their players, and then going out, and if you're in Guam or wherever you are playing at futures, you're not staying in nice hotels, and you're not getting the nicest food. But it's those things, again, I put it on myself. We haven't had any budget raising or anything here that would give us better opportunity to travel, to fly places or whatever. It's all been through getting in the community, fundraising. The beauty of our programs, your program and mine, is we have guys that we can bring in the community that will shine, and I'm not shy about getting my guys out and introducing them to the public, because that's really how the relationships start, and how you can start building a group around. And I was fortunate to have an assistant, Jason Shkodnik, that was here 2015 and 16. He played for us, but he just got in and bought into that community thing full hook, line, and sinker. We had a match against Ball State with 500 fans, and we had a bounce house for kids, and we had a DJ one time, and he was always trying to get people there. And once people come out to see the matches, they want to be a part of it. And so that's really been, for me, that having that community behind us, and which all started, about 3-4 years into my time here, has really kept me here. I mean, some of these relationships I have now with this community, are going to be lifelong. And that's a special deal that you get. If you're at a Power 5 school, you don't really have that big of an opportunity, because every team, has a chunk of that community. Whereas here in Buffalo, there were at Drake, where you are, I mean, it's your shine, we can shine. And that's a really cool thing. Like, it's, being at Bama, going from 65 to 10, my AD said it, I'll never forget. I wanted to interview for the Mississippi State job, and went in and met with Mal Moore. He's like, now, why do you think you want to be the head coach of Mississippi State? And I was like, we went from 65 to 10 since I've been here. And he looked me straight in the eye. He goes, well, you're supposed to be 10. And I was like, okay. And so then we come to Buffalo. My first year, we won the regular season conference, and it was front page of the news. And it was, we were getting and that appreciation, you can't really, quantify that. You really can't. And so I guess I look at it, how everything has kind of come together here. You look at the community side of it. We get so much support now. We can rely on that especially in a time like now, when it's uncertain. I know I have people that can support us, support our guys, and do those things when the chips are down. And that's important for all young coaches, I think.
Well, and I think, you touched on something there about winning, and winning and being successful is enjoyable, and being able to put yourself in a spot where you're able to, contend for and win conference championships, no matter where you are and what conference you're in, it is a great feeling and a great accomplishment in itself. And, that is a major part of what we sell our players and our recruits at Drake.
Right. Let me ask you a question, because you guys you've gone on and gone to NCAAs a good amount of times. Like, I remember telling myself, and this is you look at it like winning is the ultimate goal. We want to win. We want to win championships. We're competitive as can be. But I used to tell myself all the time, I'm like, if we can just go through, sweep the conference regular season, win the tournament, go to NCAAs, that's all I want to do. I'll be happy. Okay, and so we did that, and I'll never forget the moment we lost to A&M. My mind went directly to, what do we have to do to beat A&M next year? Like, it was not, like that kind of it wasn't, letdown's a tough thing to say, but, you know, you build up to like, this is what I want. This is it. And then you get it. You know, what's your experience with that? Like you get through, you have one of those seasons like you guys have had where you have an exceptional year and you get to that last match and it's over. You know, I think that's one of the reasons my paradigms have changed and what's important for me now. And I don't know about you. What did you experience when you guys had those years?
Well, we've been fortunate. I just finished my 8th year at Drake. You know, we didn't get to finish the season, so we don't know how the end would have played out. But so through my first 7 years, we made the NCAA 6 times, NCAA tournament 6 times, twice advanced to the second round. And one of those times really had a shot at moving on to the Sweet 16. And, you know, the first time we advanced in the NCAA tournament, we ended up playing UCLA in the second round, and they were number 1 in the country, and ended up that year losing to Virginia in the finals. Anyway, you know, I don't think we as a team walking away from that really thought, you know, that was a match we would win, you know, that day, or if we played them 10 times. You know, we've been fortunate enough the last few years, we've been getting in to really have shots at advancing. And yeah, you walk away from those bitterly disappointed. And our goal at Drake has been to do what no other Drake team has done. Prior to my arriving at Drake, the school had never advanced in the NCAA tournament. So, you know, we did that, and we did that twice during my tenure as head coach. And we in the program and we want to take that next step and make it to the Sweet 16. So I think as competitors, you're always wanting, you know, a little bit more. You know, whether it's on the tennis court or you know, whatever you're challenging yourself with, you're always wanting a little bit more. And it's not at all like, hey, we're settling just for, you know, doing well in this conference. We're just settling for this. I mean, you still want to take care of those, but you're always wanting more. Okay, if we're winning the conference tournament, now how do we advance in NCAA tournament? Okay, we're advancing in the NCAA tournament. How do we go even further in the NCAA tournament? You're always wanting more.
Well, no, I mean, I just find it interesting because and we can look at it as a career thing too. You know, we all have. When I got in, like I said, my goal was to be at Bama as a head coach or to be at a school like that. You know, and then it took me 7-8 years to figure out, okay, that's not really what it was. And then it was, okay, I just want to kick everybody's butt and have a year. And we did that. And then it's like, okay, well, that was great. But, you know, I'm not just now in this like heaven state where I'm totally pleased and content with what we have. You know, it always kind of goes on to something next. And so I look at, you know, we look at how making the program that you want, you look at it and you look at your goals, and I guess you reevaluate as time goes on. But ultimately, I think for young coaches especially, it's, you know, you've got to find the positive side of where you're at. And so, you know, I remember being at Bama and with all the advantages.
So I'll interrupt you and say, yes, I think I know where you're going with this. And yeah, the mindset does change. Yeah, we still want to win. Okay, we're doing this. We want to take that next step. But I think as we move in our college coaching careers, there's less focus solely on how to have a great season. You know, how do we have a better season? And more so on, you know, how are we making this program better? How are we improving things for our student athletes? How do we make the experience for them better? And in what ways we can do that? And at Drake, it's you know, how do we get out in the community? How do we help fundraise? How do we get, you know, live stream cameras on our tennis courts? You know, all these little things that we start thinking about to improve our program, not just, hey, how do we win the next tennis match we're going out to play?
That's exactly right. I mean, I bought into trying to get this indoor facility built here, which has been, you know, a 6 or 7 year project trying to at least get the ball rolling, which we did, you know, coming up to this little break that we're having right now. But I guess I've found, and you know, looking at trying to make the program that you want, you find other ways to kind of challenge yourself, I guess, other than the tennis side of it and the results side. I mean, we're always trying to recruit a better player. We're always trying to find different ways to train, you know, to do that. But really, you know, my first 5-6 years here were just solely based on that. Whereas if we don't have a facility, we don't have an indoor facility. We just finally made it.
I'm just thinking of something that kind of makes me laugh. So I've had several players that have moved on and been assistant coaches at some great schools. And I remember early on when one of them first joined a national championship program, and he said, "Oh, it's amazing. So many things. He's so on point with this and this." But at the same time, he's got a staff of 4 or 5 people underneath him that are taking care of each thing. And at that time, I didn't have an assistant at Drake, right? So we're talking about, okay, how do we focus on a practice? How do we focus on making the practice better? How do we focus on winning tennis matches? How do we recruit? But at the same time, how are we getting out in the community? How are we fundraising? How are we making our tennis matches events? There were all these roles that need to be filled, and a lot of times at mid-major programs, we're doing all of them. And so I think we were lucky enough and fortunate enough that we were able to finally get a full-time assistant coach, and that is huge. So yeah, I say we want to, our focus has been, okay, how do we make a better program? But I definitely needed help in doing that and being able to put a little focus on our overall program and not just, okay, hey, how do I get by today? And I know for years that almost was my mindset, or I was supposed to, okay, how do I get by today? What am I doing today? How do I get through this day? Instead of saying, okay, you're handling practice, you can handle recruiting. I've got some great alumni network right now that, that are helping me stay in touch and build our community support. So it's just it's a weird place we're in, but if we can get a little bit of help, then we really can help ourselves build this program or get that vision where we want it.
Right. It's and one of it's a double-edged sword with what we have, because you can sit here and say, okay, we don't, we played Florida State this year. I'll never forget, we're walking down, Florida State was playing, I think, Tennessee Tech the day before. Or no, the women were playing, Florida State, the men were practicing on the back courts. And they had 4 people out there picking up balls for the guys, on top of 2 coaches and everything else. And my guys walked in, they're like, what is this? It's different. And then they had a whole team of people that put on our match. They had a whole team of people that put on our match with Tennessee Tech the next day, and referees on every court and all this kind of stuff. But it's that is nice. Don't get me wrong, I would love to have that. But in the same sense, what you're saying is, yeah, we've had to sit here and kind of handle every side of this job, this role that we have. And we're at places where we can make mistakes. I can go back and, how many promotional things we tried to do that didn't work. Where we did towels one time, we ended up ordering 200 towels. We had 198 after the match was done.
Oh, wow.
It's
still giving them out.
But you can't really, you don't get that opportunity at big schools. Whereas, here I can look back on it, even at 24, 25, I felt like I was 40, and then now I'm 42 and I feel like I'm 25. I don't get kind of how my mentality and my emotions and how they've all kind of grown and how they have, but it's, I've made mistakes from 30 to 40 here that aren't really, no one can tell, because it is kind of, we're isolated and we're a mid-major, and it's not, it's not that big on the national scene. And that's been great, because my experience has been learning as I'm doing, not as an assistant, which I'm sure you probably agree with as well. And we get that question a lot from young coaches, what's the pathway? What's the best path? Assistant at a big school, then do I go to the job, or do I take a mid-major and go? And there's no direct path, but the only thing that you got to know is what's going to make you better as a coach. And I knew, when I was talking to Peter, I'd been an assistant for 5 years. I was probably a little too big for my britches. And I was like, I want to be a head coach and try to utilize what I've learned from these guys that I've worked with, as opposed to go be an assistant again. And again, it's one of those things people may sit there and say, well, that's a stupid decision. And maybe career-wise it was, but I can't pass up the last 11 years of the learning on the job that I've gotten. It's something that I never would have had the opportunity to do as an assistant somewhere else. And that's, again, when you look at making the job you want, you know, it's, you don't just jump into a job that's perfect. There's no perfect situation out there anyway, but, you know, having that ability to do it, to make some errors, but to continue to go forward, has been vital for me, I would have to say.
No, there's, as we tell our student athletes, you know, there's different pathways to any level of success. And as college coaches, you know, when we're getting in this business, we have no idea what all it entails. And as you mentioned, you had that vision of where you wanted to go, and that's completely different now. And you know, our mentality, our mindset, and our ideas of what we really want become different. And we grow and mature, and we're continuing to grow and mature.
Yeah, it's amazing. 42, I still feel I got a long way to go. One of my former players was like, we were hitting a couple days ago, and he's 30 now, and he's a doctor, and he said to me, he goes, how old were you when you took over? And I said, I was 30 years old. And he's like, I can't believe that you were coaching us. You seem so much older. And I look back at 30, and I feel like I was like 12. I just felt, I mean, looking back on that, being a head coach, having that responsibility, I don't know if I just didn't recognize it at the time, because now it seems so daunting. But back then it was just kind of like, it was like, I don't know. I didn't view myself as a 30-year-old, I guess, back in those times. But I don't know. It's well,
I mean, it's like, is it 30, you feel you're comfortable running practices and helping a guy hit a forehand or something. But yeah, I don't know how a 24-year-old, a 30-year-old version of myself was mentoring, you know, young men. I mean, I don't want to say that's scary, but it is like, okay, the way I'm handling my student athletes now is far different from the way I was addressing and approaching them, you know, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
You know, I had a view of how I was as a coach, and my dad, growing up, I had older parents. I was a surprise baby back in those days, especially. And so my dad was from Indiana. He was a big Bobby Knight fan. So he kind of fathered like Bobby Knight coached a little bit. And so when I got into coaching, I always felt, okay, you know, I'm going to have that kind of intensity and that attitude. But it's been really interesting to see, you know, from Bama to now, my progression in terms of my responses and how I make decisions and do all those things. And I think the job has played a big role in that. And I think having a child, I mean, you had children, gosh, you must have had kids when you were like 12 years old. I mean, you know, I can't believe how you had kids in college and all this. I mean, talking about having maturity at a young age, there's no way I was ready to parent before I was 35. But I know that had a major impact in how I kind of coach. And you know, for you, hell, we may be asking more about when your kids are all out of the house here in the next few years as opposed to when you had them. Because how old were you when you had your first kid?
Yeah, well, my kids are in college and juniors, seniors in high school, so they are almost out of the house. Anyway, we'll have that conversation in a few years, and we'll see how my life changes. We weren't thinking that way on that recruiting trip to Florida State years back.
Yeah, that's right. No way.
All right, Lee, it's been fun spending some time with you. We're going to move into a fun segment of the show called Quick Volleys. So we're going to test your reflexes here. Are you ready?
I'm ready, 100%.
All right. Starting a match, serve or return?
Return all the time, 100%.
All right, no ad scoring, like or dislike?
I like it. You know what? I didn't like it at first, but because I used to run the guys to death, and now I like it. I like that gambling aspect to it, and I do contribute it to some of our best wins against Cornell and Harvard. I don't know if we do that without deuce. So,
all right, deuce or ad box when returning a no ad deciding point?
We talking for me, right? This is Lee Nickel, vintage.
Yeah,
Lee Nickel.
You're stepping on the court. You're going to take a return.
100% ad side. 100%.
Okay. Best venue in the MAC?
I'd have to say Western Michigan. They get a lot of support from the USTA and the Kalamazoo, the tournament there. So,
all right, best venue in the country?
Oh man, you got to go Athens. I mean, you have to. I would say Jay Dwadi is a good friend of mine. We go out to Oklahoma State every year before All-Americans, and that facility is unbelievable. But I think in terms of just history, everything else, I think Athens takes the cake.
All right. Toughest place to play in the MAC?
Oh, Ball State, 100%. Bill will play outside in 40-degree weather with 30-mile-per-hour winds if you let him, and it's normally that in Ball State. So,
yeah,
so we'll say
Muncie. That's never easy. I played a junior tournament in Muncie, the old Western Open, and the matches were delayed. We were on court, and this small tornado thing came through town or through the courts. And anyway, we had a long delay just because of this windstorm. Anyway, it's bizarre.
It's a tight race between Muncie and Tulsa as the windiest place in the country, for sure.
All right. Toughest place to play in the country.
Ooh, okay. I would have to say, just from my experiences, being a coach all over, I'd have to say Ohio State.
All right. Gotcha. That a lot of people throw Ohio State out there, but they have the right.
I would assume so.
Yeah. All right. Favorite tradition at Buffalo?
Well, let's think here. I would have to say with the group that we have, my favorite tradition is our first practice of the spring. It's not something that we do, every time per se. It's not like a structured practice in a sense, but just that first practice every spring, we always have, just the energy's crazy. And I love that. I love that first feeling.
All right. Most memorable athletics event at Buffalo outside of tennis?
Ooh, outside of tennis, I would have to say our men's basketball team beating Arizona and going to the second round of the NCAA tournament, followed closely by our women's team making Sweet 16, for sure.
Nice. All right. Most memorable moment as a player? Collegiate player?
Beating North Carolina, so clinching the match for Furman against North Carolina Chapel Hill. It was the first time we'd ever beaten them in 30 years. We were 0-29, and it came down to my match, and I pulled that one out. So that would probably be it.
Nice. Nobody beats Furman 30 times in a row.
No
right?
way. No.
All right. Okay. Most memorable moment as a coach?
The Sweet 16 run, I think, at Bama was certainly competitively was amazing. But in 2017, my father passed away right before we went to play Western Michigan during the regular season, and we beat Western. This was the first time we'd beaten them indoors at their place. And then we went back in the tournament and we're down, umpty 5 match points, should never have won and won that too. So I would say that year, that March and April of that year were probably the greatest for me.
Nice. All right. Toughest loss as a coach?
I would say the 2014 MAC championships. We were playing Ball State, and it came down to Pablo, and we had 5 dual match points, and one where the ball was going. It was in Muncie, and we were playing Ball State, finals of the tournament, and the ball was going way out. We started running towards him to tackle him, and this gust of wind, of course, came in and blew the ball literally right on the back of the line. We all stopped, and he missed the shot, and then it was like that was it. So that was tough. That was brutal.
Yeah, it sounds like it. All right. Most influential person to you as a player?
I was so fortunate growing up in Atlanta to have, Brian Bahaley, Chad Carlson, Robbie Ginepri, Bobby Reynolds. All these guys I grew up with, the community there was amazing. And so I look at the most influential for me tennis-wise. I look at those guys that I played against. Like Bahaley was a really good example, and Marco Soranko played one at Duke. Those guys taught me more about tennis than probably any other coach.
Most influential person to you as a coach?
My mom, for sure. She's 86 and she still teaches 40 hours of piano a week right now. She was number 1 in the country. She actually played Bobby Riggs back in the day. And so, she's a teacher, tennis teacher, piano teacher. And just the way she teaches and the fact that she's so great at it even now at this age and still does it like she does is just an inspiration for sure.
All right. Favorite book?
I would say probably Good to Great or The Tipping Point, one of those two. I think they both are really good for people coming up and coaching and life in general. But those really helped me kind of evaluate the program as a whole.
All right. Favorite movie?
Wow. I would say there's Unforgiven for sure by Clint Eastwood, and Pulp Fiction. Anything Quentin Tarantino does is up there for me.
I just watched Pulp Fiction with my son, man. He loved it. All right. Favorite tennis movie?
I would say, man, gosh, Battle of the Sexes was pretty good with about Billie Jean and Bobby Riggs. I did like the McEnroe Borg documentary, and then the McEnroe Borg movie was pretty good too. The one with Shia LaBeouf or whatever that guy's name is. I thought they did a pretty good job of that.
Do you have a current show you're currently streaming?
Well, I've blown through everything. Ozark was legit. Tiger King was really good. I'm watching Billions right now on Showtime. I love that show as well.
All right.
And the Jordan documentary was a joke. How good.
Last Dance.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Are you a bigger fan of Jordan now, or how did that?
Good question. Yeah, I would say I'm a bigger fan of him. I like that intensity and that energy that he had. Certainly, probably tough to play with, but I love the fact he pulled everybody with him. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. All right. Hobby off the tennis court.
Let's think here. Well, I'm currently a terrible golfer that plays a lot. Nothing seems to change to make me better, but I still go out there and do it. I was a drummer growing up. I'm pretty into art now, especially with a 6-year-old daughter. We do a lot of sketching and a lot of music and stuff like that. I'll get on the piano and bring some of that back when I can. But I was a drummer growing from 10 on, so I like to get on and hit the drums every once in a while.
Nice. All right, man. First racket you ever picked up?
I would say the Prince Graphite was what I usually used. What my mom was using. She was using the Prince Graphite, and I would go out and try to return her serve when I was 7 and swing that around. And that was what I used all the way up until I think my freshman year of college.
All right. Racket in college.
Racket in college?
Yeah.
I went from the Graphite to the 200G from Dunlop because they were giving them to me for free. And I think that's what ruined my shoulder. And then I went, Roddick was just coming up then, and Babolat sent a bunch of those Pure Drives, and the Pure Control, I think, was the other one. And so I started using the Pure Drive just because it saved my shoulder, but I hated every minute of it. I was taking holes out in the fence. Couldn't control the ball.
What's your current racket of choice?
Whatever I can play with my shoe if I need to, but I'm using the Yonex, the blue one, and it hasn't been strung in 2 years. So, and I play with it. It's not that I haven't. I think the string just is so dead it just kind of sticks to the ball. But yeah, that's.
So I was going to ask you your tension, but by 2 years you probably have no idea.
Probably 15 right now.
All right. What former college coach would you like to take to dinner?
Former Dick Gould for sure, 100%. I got to see Dick when I was my second year at Bama. We took Joe to NCAA's, and that's when Coach Gould was put into the Hall of Fame. And he got up and he didn't really give a long speech, but he got up and he said, my career I've always used obstacles as opportunities. And that stuck with me forever. Since that day, it's something I tell our guys all the time. But I'd love to sit down with him and see how he did it at Stanford. I think that'd be really cool.
All right, last question. If you weren't a college tennis coach, what would you be doing?
I would be a drummer in a rock band and would be traveling all over, probably doing stupid decisions.
All right, man. Lee, that sounds good. Had some fun with you today. Again, I appreciate the time you spent with us on College Tennis Talk. And hoping things get back to normal for you soon enough, for you and your family and all athletics programs at Buffalo.
Yeah, Davidson, thanks, man. This was a lot of fun, buddy. Stay safe, okay?
All right, you too.